Okay, today for the first episode, we're tackling Super Mario Bros. 1. Super Mario Bros. 1 tries to use level design in World 1-1 to teach players most of the skills they're going to need to be able to beat the levels and enemies in the rest of the game. It tries to use a method that shows them something and then tutorializes that by having them interact with it based on how it looks, and then also shows them that same thing again but a little bit harder and just gradually giving them tougher and tougher challenges, so the player naturally gets better at things just by doing easier, more simple versions of the same thing. The game tries to also appeal to two different types of player profiles that the level designer is targeting, which is one who's a slow, cautious explorer and one who's a fast, more reflexive player who wants to speed run through the level and move as fast as they can, avoid enemies rather than try to die by fighting them. World 1-1 begins with this negative space right here, and it's kind of just inviting the player to move right. If they try going left, they'll hit the edge of the screen, but there's a lot of empty space over here to the right. First thing they see is this question block. It shines and you want to grab it. It's 1985 at least, and most of the games you've seen right now, if there's a flashing thing, you want to grab it. It's something good. By the time you get to the block, the first Goomba appears on the screen, and it looks like an enemy, has angry eyes. It's walking right towards you. Maybe if you had the time to pause it and be more curious, you might notice that it's a mushroom, but it's just a weird angry guy who's walking towards you, and you don't want anything to do with that. So you, the player, try to run left, much like the barrel at the beginning of Miyamoto's Donkey Kong. If you try to not take action, the game designer will just kill you for not doing anything as a way to try to teach you to keep moving. So the game's trying to get the cautious player to move fast and get the fast players to do what they want to do and kind of try to move past this. So this teaches you to jump. If you do not want to press any buttons other than the D-pad, now you definitely want to. You'll press the B button maybe, it'll do nothing. You'll press A and you'll jump over the enemy. Once you've killed the enemy, hitting the question block has a nice dopamine rush sound. You love it. You got a high score. You're a 1985 player. You love scores in games for some reason, even though it's a console game. You want to go get the rest of them. You hit the other brick, nothing happens. You hit the second one, and then something that looks a lot like the Goomba comes out of it, and it's a power-up mushroom. Now, the power-up mushroom you might not know is a power-up mushroom. You might just think it's another Goomba, and it's moving even faster. And it goes down, it bounces off of the pipe over there, which, lets you know now that some objects are solid and will cause non-player controlled objects to bounce off them and head the other direction, which is important. That's how Goombas work. And the player might just want to run from this, potentially. They've already don't have enough room because the screen ratchet scrolls and doesn't allow you to move left. Every time the player moves right, you can only keep moving forward. So the player is now trapped and maybe jumps over this mushroom, but let's pretend like they instead accept its sweet death and let the mushroom take them. They now get even bigger score than the coin gave them, and Mario is now twice the size. That feels good. That is another little dopamine rush, and actually the player got stronger for touching them. If the player continues to explore here, they can destroy blocks, get some other coins, and know that jumping will cause Mario to punch blocks and destroy them if he's big. It's good to teach people to jump in a game all about jumping early on, and it's the first lesson the game designer is trying to teach you through level design. Jumping upwards cause things to break or to yield power-ups, and downwards can kill enemies by having Mario land at them. This isn't a time when most games would have the player die or lose health by touching an enemy no matter what the circumstances are. The player next encounters a pipe. This pipe will teach them that they need to jump if they haven't figured it out somehow now. And holding down jump will change the height of Mario's jump. Hold it down as long as you can and the apex of his jump arc will only get higher and then eventually reach a maximum limit before he drops down. And then following that, they have an even taller pipe. And just in case you somehow are just still making over without realizing that Mario can jump at different heights, and his jump is not fixed. At the top of the pipe, you get your first enemy mob. The game will often spawn mobs of enemies in groups to have the player try to either avoid or fight them as a challenge. Player is taught early on as this level to avoid enemies a lot of the times because it's easier. So there's a small space in between them, but they're so close that Mario cannot precisely land in between them without also touching one and getting hurt. While trying to beat this challenge, the player is taught to potentially just go over the enemies, and sometimes ignoring them is better, or trying to pick them off one at a time cautiously is actually more risky because they're always right next to each other. You also will see the behavior of the Goombas walking into a pipe, bouncing off of it, and walking the other direction. So you know that Goombas now die in one shot by jumping on top of them, and they also only walk left until they hit something left, and then they only walk right. So they can be easily avoided since they're always fixated on one direction, and they're not actually chasing Mario. So if you're a Pac-Man player, this is not like the Ghosts, this is something newer. And then after that, the player runs into their first bottomless pit. Falling in will teach players that positioning their jumps matter. Previously, if a player mistimed their jump, they would just try to get back on top of the pipe again or land on top or go over it, and there was really no consequence. But now you'll lose a life and have to restart the level. Upon clearing the gap, immediately the player sees 2 Goombas spawn. The level designer in this game often spaces enemy spawn points to happen right after you've completed a different challenge. They don't want you to take a break. It's an action game first and foremost, and Goombas show up immediately. You see one and then a second one, and they're coming down from above, which is not something the player has seen yet. There's stuff up there, and maybe you could get up there by jumping. They can't go back, and maybe they've learned that already. There's also a bottomless pit that way, so the fast player might just run under, and the cautious player might try to fight them slowly, but we're just going to assume the player goes underneath. So this is a high-low read. The player usually has to make a split-second decision between going high or low, or going left or right, or going between 2 different paths. Enemies are actually up above, and there's a safe haven below. Now, as the player goes down here, the Goombas will just run away, and they'll go off screen. This further cements to the player that, hey, these Goombas are just going in one direction. If the player didn't go too far, maybe they can try heading up there themselves or getting that question blocked. If the player went far enough, maybe they got scared the Goombas chase him, but either way, they're facing this bottomless pit, and above them, the high road just goes slightly short of clearing the entire bottomless pit. But even a slow, imprecise player up there will definitely make it across the pit no matter what. So it makes the player regret being down below and want to be up high. So maybe they'll fight their way back high. So we're going to say that they went back up. And as soon as they cross the gap, 2 enemies spawn. It's a mob of 2 Goombas. And the player should now know that if they just wait these enemies out, they will walk to their deaths. Koopa Troopa has already spawned off screen to the right and will walk onto screen. You didn't see it, but they're already moving towards you. And this is a second type of enemy, and the player will learn how the green Koopa Troopa works. So the green Koopa Troopa will walk in one direction until stop, much like the Goomba, but jumping on them won't kill them. The player will instead find out that they need to also deal with the shell. Running into the shell doesn't hurt Mario, instead it sends it flying. Now if the player's the fast player, they'll realize that this shell can actually kill other enemies. And if they run fast enough, they will see it kill up to 3 enemy mobs. If they run too fast, they'll also see it bounce off of a wall, just like the living green Koopa Troopa and the Goombas do, and then come back at Mario as a hazard. So we're just gonna be that fast player and run to the right and watch it kill 3 mobs. Next, the player gets to a set of 2 opposite-facing staircases. This is a common level design structure you see in Super Mario Brothers games. It might just seem weird to the new player, but this is teaching them just some reflexes of landing on a single block, and it also teaches you just to clear this gap. And it might seem like just kind of a weird thing in the road until you get to the next set of stairs, which, though it has a longer landing area at the top, it's now 2 squares or 2 blocks long. One is about the length of Mario's body, so there's no room for a running start like those bottomless pits earlier we had on the ground. This bottomless pit must be cleared up high. After making it over, the player finds the last segment of the level design, which is a pipe. And it might just seem like out of place since the other pipes were all together and the player hasn't seen a pipe in a bit. Think of himself, why is this pipe here? A lot of what's behind this game is all driven visually. So just like how the Goomba looking just like the mushroom, just like the block being flashy, and the turtle going into its shell to indicate that it's still alive and needs a second hit, this pipe is a pipe. Not because Mario's a plumber, but it's a pipe because things go into a pipe and come out the other end. We're going to assume this player did not find the secret area. Even if they were slow and cautious, they didn't find the secret area. But maybe this prompts them to think about, what if something's up with these pipes? Why are these pipes everywhere? They don't seem to do anything. There's another mob of 2 Goombas, which the player can take a high road and avoid. Taking the low road will actually make that very difficult. The last part is a long staircase that takes the player up higher than they've seen before, just like the staircase you saw earlier. So the player will want to jump off the top based on what they've been taught earlier. They want to clear whatever's going on below here and just move on. The slow player might have gone up too slow and just inched their way up to the front, and then now not having momentum to make the flagpole. The fast player might have just awkwardly jumped up the stairs as fast as they could and land somewhere near the bottom of the flagpole, or maybe even touch it, but not get that high up on the flagpole. Either way, the player doesn't get to the top their first time. Instead, they just see the flagpole, they jump at it because the bottom's a block. Once again, jumping is always something the game is pushing you to do since it is how the game is played. And you'll get a score, the flag will come down, and you'll think to yourself, maybe I can go up there higher. I want to replay the level. I'm a 1985 Fallout player, and I want a high score, even though there's no leaderboard in this game. And right at the beginning of the level, Mario walks into another pipe. Players probably has not seen Mario go into a pipe. And seeing the Mario go into the pipe definitely lets you know that Mario could have gone into one of those other pipes before. Maybe there's more secrets they haven't seen. I think I hit the main points of why the level design in World 1-1 is good and how it teaches the player to conquer the challenges that they'll see in the rest of Mario 1. Thank you for watching.